Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar, where we're going to be looking at choosing the right products for your agile workers. So before we kick off on that, we are always after future content for our webinars. So if you've got any subjects or any topics that you want us to cover, it doesn't need to be specifically Posturite related and what we do and services that we provide. So anything around sort of health and well-being and HR related matters, things like that, feel free to let us know. We're always after feedback from it as well. Feel free to ask any questions as we're going along. I sort of see them pop up on the screen, so if I can answer them today, then I will. If not, then what we usually do is pull them together and get the right people at the company answering those questions and giving you the respective feedback that you're after. So now that most people are here, we will start the webinar properly. So we're going to look at choosing the right products for agile workers. I'm David Kirtley. I'm the seating specialist at Posturite. So I've been working at Posturite for nearly 18 years. My job is really working with clients across the UK and helping them select the right chairs for their employees. So while the majority of our work is assessment work, what I try and do is make sure those assessments don't happen in the first place. So that's my job in a nutshell. So today, these are what we're going to cover. So what is an agile workspace? Why is it important that we get it right? And then the main crux of it is the factors to consider when choosing the right equipment. Okay, so what does an agile working environment look like? And I suppose I just sort of look at my own experience over the last month or so, and to put a really loose definition on it, I think it's anywhere that you carry out your work. So, looking at those images there is working from, a cafe type setup, whether you're working on your own, whether you're working with colleagues, home working environment. I've worked on a desk from a hotel room. Those touchdown areas, those sort of work-life type places that are popping up. So yeah, again, those places that you can just touch down and do some work if you've got a spare few hours. And obviously the traditional office environment. So, I'm fortunate enough to, we've got our head office down in Sussex where I work from. Some of our suppliers' offices, I get to work from there as well. So the focus today is going to be on that, the traditional office environment. I think that all those other areas are really important, and that really comes down to probably personal issue equipment as opposed to equipment you can supply for all your workers. So let's look at that. We'll call it multi-user DSE equipment. Why do we need to get it right? And I think that there's a couple of things here. One is there's often a huge change of culture where the office environment is changing from a single-use workstation, maybe people in singular offices, moving into a more sort of agile type working environment, so hot desking, multi-user workstation, whatever you want to call it. So there's quite a change of culture there, and we find that the organizations that manage that better is through effective communication with their staff, and also looking at the range of the working population demographic as well, taking into account age, size, stature, all those sort of things. And I want to keep it really simple when we're looking at the workstation setup in these types of environment, and I tend to work from front to back. So we'll look at the screen and the monitor, then we'll look at the desk, and then we'll look at the chair. So really simply, let's have a look at, there's two types of workers. Obviously laptop workers. I think it's just so important now to provide your laptop users with some sort of setup. So there on the right, we've got our, the laptop style kit where you use the existing screen on the laptop with a separate keyboard and mouse. So I think for short periods of work, I think they're brilliant. I suppose the downside of that is often that laptop screens can be quite small. So an ideal setup, the setup I'm sat in front of now, is similar to that one on the left. And where you use your laptop as your CPU and you have your monitor set up, you get a larger monitor. It's better for productivity, reduction in error rates. And you can have that similar sort of setup based on the network when you log in as well. So honestly, I think the best way, you have to have your monitor separate from the screen. And the monitor, the bigger it can be, the better. So really, really straightforward stuff there. Okay, And the placement of the screen is critical as well. So we've got a couple of setups there. We've got the tablet screen, again, depending on the type of work people are doing. But that setup down the bottom is often used where the laptop can be used for one work, so your correspondence, your emails, things like that. And then on a separate side, we can look at other type of work as well. But I think it's really important in the office environment that there's two modes of adjustment. One is that it needs to be adjustable in height and depth. And I think one point that's often ignored is it has to be adjustable from a seated position. And I often see monitor arms that have a degree of adjustment, but actually to adjust that, you have to go to the back of the desk. You have to unscrew and loosen the fitting. You then adjust the height according to it and screw it back in place. It can be a manual task, it will be inconvenient, and often doesn't get done. So actually having a monitor and having a monitor arm that can be adjusted from a seated position is critical. Desks. So, I mean, no surprise where we advocate sit-stand desks for everyone. We passionately believe that it's an investment that companies should be making when you start looking at productivity, reduction in absence, facilities, cost, all that sort of stuff. So, in an ideal world, everyone should have a sit-stand desk. We appreciate that it's not always going to be the case. Okay, there's a couple of options to that. Either you work on a percentage of sit-stand options, so whether it's 1 in 10, 1 in 5, whatever proportion you want, and obviously the higher you can get, the better. The other options, you've got some retrofit sit-stand devices. So traditionally, they've been products like the VariDesk, DeskRite 100. One product we've recently launched is the Oploft, which is what you see on the right hand side there. So similar sort of function in terms of the height adjustability. The benefits being that it folds flat, so you can conveniently tuck it away. So if you're working from home or working from an office, you can have that on a standard desk, bring it up to standing height, sit down, and then you can tuck it away at the end of the day. So Oploft, fantastic product, and we'll send some details around that afterwards. And then I suppose my specialist area is really looking at chair selection for an agile environment. I think there's 4 factors we need to look at. It's basically being suitable, adaptable, durable, and simple. If we take those cases each in turn. Suitable. What is the area being used for? And I think we need to start with that being the focus. Is that area going to be used for people touching down and being down there for 20 minutes, half an hour, where they just pop into the office? Is it going to be used for a prolonged use of time? So really working out if that's a more sort of permanent workstation or a touchdown area. Again, what area is they used for? Is it collaboration? Is it a traditional workstation setup, or is it a quiet area, or these concentration booths that you see now and again? So working out what the area is being used for, and I think that will give you direction to what products need to be selected for. So length of use, again, looking at work surface height. Down at our head office, we've got a breakfast bar with some Capisco stools around it. So, when I drive down there, it takes a few hours to get there. I can pop in, so I can either stand and do some work, I can perch on the stools and crack on with some work, but I'm only going to be there for 20 minutes, half an hour before I get on with the rest of the day. So looking at the work surface height, and again, importantly, it often gets ignored, what's floor type? If it's working in a cafe area or a laboratory type area or anywhere with a hard floor, make sure the casters are suitable for that particular environment. Again, it sounds really simple, but sometimes often ignored. Adaptable, and I think, regards to ergonomics, this probably is the highest on the agenda. And I think we need to get as close to 100% fit as possible. On recent projects that we worked on that clients have engaged with us and we got the right products in place, we're looking at upwards of 99.5% satisfaction. And by that I mean we've got very, very few people who can't get comfortable, or we can't get the chairs to fit them. So I think that's really important. It used to be 95%. I think we need to get closer to 99%. So there's few things there. Looking at the upper weight limit, again, the standard now, or the upper standard is 150 kilos. Some of the cheaper chairs are around about 120 kilos, and I think that's a really sort of good sign of durability. But the upper weight limit is important. 150 kilos is going to cater obviously to more of your staff. The seat depth range, at the very minimum, needs to have a 5 centimeter adjustment. We're now looking more in sort of 8, 10, 12 centimeters adjustment. And it might be worth looking at the NPR, which is now the new Dutch standard for office chairs, which need to have greater adjustability and slightly different height range in the chairs. And I think that's something that we're probably going to see in the UK market before long. Armrest function, there's often a stigma with armrests, and I think that's a traditional, maybe a traditional opinion of them, where they're badly designed, where they might be bulky or inflexible. So looking at armrest function, making sure they are adjustable in height and importantly depth, and then possibly having the function that they can tuck away if necessary, for those staff who don't particularly like it. But again, looking at that employee demographic, and I think when you're trialing chairs, make sure you get a really good cross section of the staff that you're working with, and making sure that the chairs that you're looking at can fit as many people as possible. Durability. So this is, again, I think this is really important for multi-user workstations. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I think there can be a lack of ownership and accountability in a workstation. If you're only working there for a day and you might drop down there, work somewhere else, another day, work something else, you don't necessarily have the accountability and the ownership of that particular workstation. So might not care for it as much as they usually would. But I think most importantly, if you're looking at a multi-user workstation and you've got a different user working there every day, that chair could be adjusted 250 times a year. So over the course of 10 years of the lifespan of the chair, it could be 2,500 times. So that adjustment and that durability has to be there. So for that degree of adjustment, the number of adjustments over that time, the chair can withstand that. Obviously, the more adjustment, the more use, the more wear and tear. So I think warranty is now really important. Again, standard is 5 years, but look more towards sort of 10 years, but also take into account what that warranty covers. We see some manufacturers who sort of have a headline figure of a 12-year warranty on the chair, but actually you start looking down into the details of it. The gas stem might only be warranted for 5 years. The fabric might only be for 3 years. So have a look what that warranty is and have a look what it covers, because I think that's really important, particularly in these sort of multi-user workstations. And have a look at the the repairability and the replacement parts on those chairs as well. Again, if the chair does break, if a gas stem fails or a caster gets stuck or something happens to the chair, can you replace that specific part, or do you need to replace the whole chair? So again, look at how easy those chairs are to repair, what replacement parts are in place, and again, how long they're going to be available for. If you've got a chair that's going to last 10 or 15 years, you want to make sure those parts are available for that period of time as well. So durability, I think, is really important. Simplicity. With the chairs, they're going to be used on a daily basis, so make sure they're simple to operate, but with the brackets, not over simple. Again, I've seen some products that really just have height adjustment and not a lot else, and they are being used for hours at a time, if not days at a time, with very little other adjustment, no seat slide, no lumbar support. So it's make sure that the chairs are simple to operate, but not over simple. But it's so important in making sure the individual understands the need to adjust their chair and get it set up for their requirements before they start their work. And the analogy we always use is, if someone else has been driving your car, you tend to get in it, adjust the seat, adjust the steering wheel, get the mirrors in place before you drive off, and that should be exactly the same as a workstation. So that analogy, I think, rings true, certainly. And if people can just take 30 seconds, no more than a minute, just to adjust their workstation before they start, then that's really, really important. So I think key messages with the agile working environment and looking in the productivity and selecting the right products is a change of culture, and I think communication really is the key. We've worked with some fantastic organizations over the last couple of years, and they have people specifically either employed or on secondment to manage that change of behavior. I think we're going to do a webinar in the not too distant future on that. So looking at the change of culture, and whatever we see, communication is the key. It is the company's responsibility to get it right, but it's also the individual's responsibility to adopt up-to-date working practices and also to look after themselves. If you provide them with the right equipment, if you provide them with the adjustable desk, chair, workstation, monitor, then there's a personal responsibility that they need to adjust that for their requirements as well. So it is a change of behavior. I think when looking at products, there needs to be a robust trial process. And again, we mentioned it earlier, make sure a good spread of demographic tries out the chairs or the desks or the monitor arms. Make sure it's fit for purpose. And in all cases, get a mock-up of the final workstation, what it's going to look like, so that people can see and people can understand the process. Again, I think it's really important to look at the reason for agile working. One is that to be able to adapt to flexible work life. We've got one client that we're working with at the moment. They've got 470 staff working from one site. They've done an analysis over the last 6 months. They've never had more than 250 people there on a day, just with the nature of their business. They're going to change that up. They're going to provide 300 workstations, and people can just pop in as and when they want. They work in their selective neighborhoods. But on average, we're looking at probably a saving on estate cost is usually around 20%. So that'd be 8 desks per 10 employees. Okay, so there's often going to be a huge saving on the estate cost in that when you start looking at rents and rates and everything else that goes with it. We believe that you must invest that saving in the ergonomics of the workspace, and that workspace has to be a better place than the previous one. So I think looking at the investment, looking at that cost saving, and of that cost saving, what can you take to provide the best workplace possible for your staff? But I think we're coming to the end here. I'm really looking at, I think agile working is a great opportunity to address inactivity. Providing the right environment for your staff at work, whether they're working at a designated workstation, drop-down areas, working from home, working from various sort of locations. Just by the nature of it, there's more activity involved. It allows people more flexibility in their lives, bringing their sort of health and productivity benefits. And working from home or working from an office or working these sort of flexi time, that is the way of working. Other companies are doing it, and we're finding that companies just need to adopt these types of policies in order to obtain the best staff. But we must remember the basics of good DSE usage and keep things simple. There's no good making things over simple, but DSE regulations apply to everyone, and making sure that the workstation is adjustable from the screen to the desk and to the chair is critical, and that needs to be invested in. Okay, so we haven't had any, we've got a couple of questions popping up here. Okay, which I'm trying to spread out. So some of them are specific examples. So looking at investment of a second monitor, I think I've had a look at research. So the question is, how can you justify the investment of an additional monitor? I think when we look at some of the research on productivity and error rates and things like that, actually working from a good laptop setup compared to just a laptop alone, you can see productivity benefits of I think about 12%. I think error rates improved by about 14%. So yes, there's going to be that initial investment, but I think longer term, you're going to see the benefits of it. As I said, I work from a big screen here. I don't know what size it is, 18, 20 inches, but actually the work that I can do on this compared to actually going back to the laptop, there is a significant difference. So let's have a look. I've got any more at the moment. Okay, I think that's let's have a look at some more here. Got specific questions here about how about workers such as community nurses, manual handling injury detection, which would be ideal, a light way to work. I'll probably go into that detail in a bit more question. I'll speak to Catherine, our consultant, on that, so we can sort of really answer that fully. What is the best all-round adaptable chair that you would recommend for hot desks? I think there's a few that work really, really well at the moment. Maybe I think it'd be fair to sort of answer those sort of questions specifically. So I think the chairs from Horg and RH, in terms of the range of adjustment that they provide for the users, is fantastic. I again, when you come back to looking at seat depth adjustment, adjustable lumbar support, things like that, I think that initial investment on the good chairs is there. You'd have a look at our positive range. Again, there's a couple of chairs there that really sort of excel in sort of hot desking type environment. But again, it's specific to organizations, what budget's available, what qualities they want to look for. Aesthetics obviously come into it as well. So I think it's really important to deal with it on a sort of case-by-case basis. I mean, we've had a couple of projects recently where we've put in 700 chairs with one organization, and we've only had one individual who couldn't get comfortable in that particular chair. So if you'd asked me that at the start, we'd have probably taken that. So I think, again, looking at it on an individual level and how businesses work, what the requirements are, and again, that's my role, is engaging with our clients to ensure that that decision is got to in the right way. So I think that's it for now. Okay, yeah, that's it for now. We've got some other feedback there. As I said, if we've got any questions, any feedback about the webinar, anything that we can do in future, then please get in touch. And we will be keeping them to sort of 15-20 minutes or so. So I hope you have a good Friday afternoon. I hope you have a good rest of the week and a great weekend. Thanks very much for dialing in.